All right, welcome everybody. We're delighted to have you with us for the Mariani Distinguished Lecture Series, which we always hold here at the College of Dental Medicine. We try to do it annually, so it's a great event. But before we begin today's program, I'd like to take a moment to just recognize and express our deepest gratitude to Dr. Chris Mariani and his lovely wife, Kimber Mariani, for their extraordinary generosity and unwavering support of the College of Dental Medicine. Through their philanthropy, the Mariani family has made a meaningful and lasting impact on our institution. Their commitment to advancing education is evident not only in their support of this distinguished lecture series, but also in their dedication to providing scholarships that directly benefit our students, helping to shape the next generation of dental professionals. Their leadership and commitment have created opportunities that extend far beyond this stage. The Mariani Family Distinguished Lecture Series allows us to bring in nationally recognized leaders and innovators to our campus, enriching your education, expanding your perspective, and elevating the profile of the College of Dental Medicine. So again, the Marianis, your partnership and belief in our mission are truly inspiring. On behalf of our students and the faculty and the entire College of Dental Medicine community, thank you for the profound difference that you've made. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize our newly formed Dean's Circle of Impact Advisory Board. These are a group of dedicated people, most of who are alumni from the college, who meet behind the scenes and try to plan the future, 5 years, 10 years down the road of what we think the College of Dental Medicine should look like. And it's great to be in a room with a group of really talented thinkers and innovators. So I'd like to recognize Dr. Bob Kavanaugh. Bob is right here, graduate of our orthodontic program and practices in Valparaiso, Indiana. Dr. Michael Friend, who practices right here in Davie, graduate of our AGD program. Michael is running as our representative for state congressman here in Davie, so we wish him luck. And Dr. Michael Harris, one of my own, graduate of the OMFS in 2004, Mike? Four, yeah, five, okay. And of course, we have our chair of the board, Dr. Villanueva, and our vice president, Dr. Mariani. So thank you for your commitment and your help in continuing to advance the mission of the college. Okay. Next, it's in the same spirit of innovation and great speakers and people that help the college. We're lucky enough to have a provost, Dr. Shania, who is a real ally of the college, always been an ally of the college. He's someone I can always call at the last minute and ask him to come in and give us a small introduction and welcome. And he's always gracious enough to do it, especially a week like this week where I think he's done about 18 graduations already. So Dr. Shania is the executive vice president, provost, and chief academic officer. And he's going to give us a few words that are inspired by our university's guiding mantra. This is what excellence looks like. Dr. Shania.
I personally am not excellence what looks like, but I'll do my best today to go through this. We've had a lot of commencements this week. We had yesterday we had optometry and pharmacy and dentistry, and I always get confused because optometry, they're kind of like this mint green, and I think that should be the dental colors, like mint fresh breath, but it's not. So I always get confused with that as we go through that. I was history major undergrad, so you can have a liberal arts degree, and it turns out okay. And so I've been at the university long enough, I guess, that I have a little bit of a history. So let me give you a little bit of context in terms of where we are here today. Nova University of Advanced Technology was formed in the 60s. And that went around, so that period was like we were going to be the MIT or whoever of the South, a lot of research and that. And so it starts with the President Kennedy administration, but it ends up in the Johnson administration. So times change, funding's changed, and we had a difficult time going forward. The only part of the university of the advanced technology that you'll see today is the Oceanographic Center. We had cancer research, we had laser research, and we had ocean research. And luckily, the Foreman family gave us the land out there where it's out now on the by Port Everglades out there, and that was the only one that existed from that time. So in the 70s and to the 80s, we became Nova University, and we were part of a confederation with New York Institute of Technology. And it's during that time period that the law school was formed, and we started doing what's called the flying professor model. By the time I got here in the late 80s, we were in 35 different states. We were in over a dozen different countries. And we were one of the first universities to offer education totally online. And people say, how could you possibly learn off campus? How could you possibly learn on your own? And I always thought it was amazing. Our library was like Amazon before Amazon. We were a fulfillment center. We were sending books and articles around the world so students would have that like just in time. We didn't have the little Amazon trucks, but they were going around and doing all that kind of work. Well, we broke up with NYIT just before I got here in the late 80s and became Nova University. And there we were the 10th largest private university in the country. We had a huge program in education, a huge program in business. And Dr. Fischler retires in 1990. He'd been the president a long time. And at the event for the new president coming in, we had invited the folks from Southeastern to come up, and it's where the administration building is now. It was just a tent that day, and it was really hot. I remember that it was really hot. And on the program, Dr. Terry wrote about merger, and that started the conversation. And so in 1994, now we're in the 90s, we became Nova Southeastern University. But there wasn't a dental college in the merger, right? That was not in existence. But Dr. Terry felt that it was important. He always had a notion of a continuum of education, right? And what makes it successful for quality of life, the types of healthcare professionals, dentistry is part of it. They were closing dental colleges. He just felt that what's going to be the future of dental education? So if you go on 30th and you drive and you look at this long building and you see where the dental school is, you can see it's not connected to the clinic to the right. It was added on afterwards. After this entire building was, the Terry building was built, he used to have this scale model in his office. He was so proud of it. He said, I didn't want to look like it was one continuous building. And that's why the architecture looks a little bit different all the way through. But there was a space for the dental college, and that's where it came in. So from that start of that research thing back in the day, just a couple of years ago, we were designated as an R1 institution. And say, what's an R1 institution? Well, the Carnegie Foundation is the one based upon, we turn data in all the time. We turn data in on our students. We turn data into the federal government also for our research. And so what R1 means is that we invest over $50 million a year in research activities at the university, and we graduate at least 70 doctoral students. So R1 means we're very high in terms of research investment, and we're very high in terms of doctoral production. That's why we're an R1. And so that's a long time coming. You know, we were not even designated as a research institution at all. So I'm very excited seeing what's going to be next, right? We kind of had 4 ANOVAs, and now we're like in the 5th one. And so from a Carnegie designation, we're designated as a professions-focused university. And that was very unusual. Back in the day, everyone was a comprehensive university, you know, all liberal arts and sciences and so forth. But we train people to be professionals, lawyers, accountants, physicians, dentists, and so forth. And so that's just so important these days because the federal government's saying, we are going to invest in students' education that they're going to be able to be successful in their careers. And the College of Dental Medicine is a great example of that. So we're kind of ahead of the game, but now we're this profession, we're this clinical, we're this innovator, and we're research. And I'm very excited to see where we're going to go next. But let me tell you a little bit about what excellence looks like today. So the Wall Street Journal named NSU one of its America's best colleges. See, Wall Street investment, you get it right? And so that we're being recognized for the work that we're doing. So we are the the only university of our kind in the country. We're the only private, not for profit, profession focused, community engaged, research one opportunity university in the country. We're the only one of our kind. Let me explain what that means. What an opportunity college or an opportunity university means is our graduates are the top earners when they graduate compared to their contemporaries. Our students out earn University of Florida graduates. They out earn the University of Miami graduates. We are one of only a few universities in the country that are at the very top of that because we train you for professions to be successful. And so we also train researchers to be successful too, and that's the R1. And we're also community engaged. Now have you all been in our dental clinic, right? We have brand new chairs, right? The chairs are much better, right? And so the clinic, I think during even COVID, the afternoon maybe you were closed, maybe you were still twisting the wires and doing all that kind of stuff over there. You all are major, the most, I guess, productive, the largest clinic of NSU Health. It's the dental clinic. And so why we're community engaged and why we're seen as that impact is very much of the work that's done in this college. And I thank you for that. So healthcare education. So how many universities in the country have allopathic, osteopathic, and dental medicine colleges? Just one. Who would that be? Oh, it's us. That's us, right? We're the only one that has all three colleges of dental. We don't have veterinary yet. Just wait. But that also shows, again, Dr. Terry's vision about it's a continuum. And all these dental, medicine, allopathic, it's all about working together and providing the kind of care that we need. We educate more physicians in the state of Florida than any other university. And in the United States, we graduate more healthcare professionals than any other university in the country. And so again, that's the Terry's dream about being able to meet the needs out there. And despite how productive we are, there's still the need to produce more, better graduates in all these healthcare areas, and we are dedicated to doing that. So what else I'm going to brag about here? What's going on here? Let's see. Let's see. Would you like to know that for every dollar you invested in your tuition, you're going to get $6 back when you graduate? That sound good? Right, not so now, you know. Well, I had a birthday this week. I turned 70 this week. And I got my first Social Security check. I hope you have it when you're out there in that. But it was about that kind of investment. It was interesting. It's very confusing. I don't know about y'all. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. This is very confusing stuff, right? And so I was going to wait till I turned 70 because you get so much per month for how long you live. And they said, well, why don't you go early? I said, why? They said, because when you start eligible, the money collects. And then it goes away when you actually sign up. And I said, well, but I'm going to get $200 a month more. They said, it's going to take you 15 years to earn what we're going to give you in one check. I said, I'll take the money. I mean, it was just that kind of way. So it's the idea about our healthcare system, the idea about, thinking about the future. I just want to tell you, you've made a very wise choice pursuing this career. And I know we'll have news too in terms of what's coming up with our clinical trials that we're doing here and so forth. I just approved expansion in our collaborative research center for more space for dental research to happen because you all, we talk about ocean, we talk about everybody else, but the amount of National Science Foundation research that happens through this college is number one at our university. And it's going to be even more better as we go along with that. I mean, obviously, it takes a lot of support with these things. But the last thing I want to talk about is the ocean. So this oceanographic center that's been around since the 60s is just blossoming. We're the home of the National Coral Reef Institute. And we just received additional funding for 10 years. Every bit of coral research done in the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean will be facilitated and integrated by Nova Southeastern University, right? All the work, that's a pretty good one, right? And we're not biased. We have coral that reproduce sexually and asexually. So we're very diverse in terms of our coral here at the university. So we have scientists all over the world doing this kind of research, and it's just amazing what they're doing. But we also do those cute little turtles, and we do the sharks, and we do the emphasis on resiliency, sustainability, and the environmental impact. And so what we've started to do, we just signed an agreement with Dr. Box, and he is the director of the USGS, its version in Denmark. And he will be joining us as being our lead scientist in the ocean research in terms of those kinds of those efforts. And so last summer, we had our first expedition to Greenland. It's good to go to Greenland in the summer. If you want to have a travel, don't go there in the winter. And so I can tell you that the documentary that was produced from that was entered into the Toronto. Now it's not the real. If it was the Toronto Film Festival, I would have been there, right? But it's the Toronto Environmental Film and Screenplay Festival, and we were selected as one of the top films there to show and to emphasize that what's happening in Greenland affects us all. I don't know if you've seen it. It was premiered at the Fort Lauderdale Film Festival a week ago, and it's just the beauty of Greenland is stunning, but you can see the melt. You can see the water just going down through the glaciers and what's going to have the impact here in Fort Lauderdale and on the East Coast. And so that's well, I say probably our fourth pillar, along with the turtles and the sharks and the coral, is the kind of work we're doing. I was telling folks earlier that we do a lot of work right here in Fort Lauderdale. The water quality in Fort Lauderdale, I know it looks beautiful, but when you test it, there's some problems. And so what we do is we measure the water quality all over this county because we have to do better in terms of improving that because it affects all of our lives. And so that's the last thing I'll say is the last big initiative is the Ocean Health Initiative, putting together the research that we do in the ocean with the research we do here and the other colleges in the health professions, because it not only the ocean health is also our health. And we cannot ignore the environment that we're in. And so I just excited to see this university from the 60s to now. And I'm just so, I cannot emphasize enough. All those great things I just talked about are also here in the College of Dental Medicine. The commitment to quality service for the community, the commitment to educating the next generation of professionals in dental care, through all the orthodontics and all of those areas we have. We're very unique to do that, as well as the research that we're doing here. I'm so proud of this college, and I'm sorry to see this guy go. He's retiring, as you know, and he's not going away. But we kind of came in together, right? We came in together when I was named the provost and you were named the dean. So we've been partners through all of this, and just to see all of the technology and innovation that this university started with is alive and well in NSU's College of Dental Medicine. And Dean Colvin is a big part of that. I want to thank you so much for what you've done.
Thank you, Dr. Chennai. You gave me a opportunity to really do something that I don't have an opportunity to do quite often. And the best kept secret of the College of Dental Medicine is our research, mainly because our researchers are tucked away in the Center for Collaborative Research, which is a very high rent district. And in order to qualify to be in the CCR, you pretty much have to have a NIH funded research project. So we have a group of very, very talented researchers, all NIH funded. Majority are R01 funding. It's almost like I'm looking for what's the word I want? It's a training ground for postbacks that work with our talented researchers. Incubator is what I was looking for. And they're now moving up, getting their own NIH grants, an R21 grant, so that it's a self-producing enterprise, and it really is a research enterprise. So, give an example: the college is 29 years old at this point. We were never ranked at all nationally. The NIH only ranks the first only 45 dental schools. There are now close to 80 dental schools, and I'm proud to say we've been ranked as high as 28th in the country, and that continues to grow each year. So we have some of our researchers here. It does give me an opportunity to have you be recognized. So Dr. Han, Dr. Suzuki, please just stand up and let the college know who you are. And Dr. Kawai. And of course, everybody, the whole enterprise also supported with Dr. Christina Godoy, our Dean of Research. So we're working on trying to get a institute named, the Biosys Institute, in honor of our researchers. So, you go to class every day. I'd venture to say most of you didn't know about our research enterprise. If you are inclined to do some research, want to learn more, what they're doing is just phenomenal. They're on the cutting edge. So go over, talk to them. They're always very gracious to have you sit down and talk about whatever you want. So continuing with that mantra, I'm going to show you a video and hopefully bring to life some of the things that we're doing here at the College of Dental Medicine. This video was submitted as part of our application, which took close to 3.5 years to become the third Apple Distinguished Dental School in the country. We're one of 3. So this was one of the videos we had to submit. At Nova Southeastern University College of Dental Medicine, we've reimagined what it means to prepare the next generation of dental professionals. We're unique here, one of the few colleges in the country that has full scope digital dentistry. We've invested not only in people, but in digital dentistry equipment. We cultivate curiosity, encourage bold thinking, and give students the tools to explore, create, and lead.
With the integration of technology into our curriculum, we are preparing our students for a future where digital proficiency is paramount.
It's all about creating learning experiences that prepare our students not just to pass exams, but to retain the information and thrive in a rapidly evolving healthcare environment.
We embrace technology every single day. The iPad for me has become a necessary tool. I have the opportunity to have more interaction with my students, and I can walk around the auditorium and they can see and interact more with me.
It's fascinating to see our students using their iPad to access interactive textbooks, 3D models, and virtual simulation that brings concepts to life.
Students use their iPads to connect with the live interactive media during that class time. These tools also give us real-time insight into their understanding. Today's students are digital natives, so I ask myself, how can I turn passive learners into engaged problem solvers? That's where the flipped classroom model comes in. Instead of spending time in classes lecturing, students prepare in advance with lecture videos and digital resources. So this frees up our time together to discuss clinical cases and interpret imaging through interactive game-based activities. And the mega champ, the radiology ninja for 2025 is Jasmine R.
Both my parents are dentists, so growing up, I've heard so much about their education, and it's just so crazy how much it's changed. We have this new AR haptic simulator lab. It's this machine, and you sit in it, and when you look in front of you, it's just a couple teeth and this black pen that doesn't really look like anything. And you see it through the goggles, and it turns into this whole simulator. You can really do anything, and the coolest part is that it feels as if you're actually doing it.
The AR Haptic Room really inspires them to be excellent students because they have the opportunity to practice and just become better doctors. They can scan an actual patient in the clinic and we can upload that scan and they can practice before they actually go into the patient's mouth. It's less stressful for the students to practice that way. And they're just having fun. They're not scared to do something new. So it's a big confidence builder before they go into the clinic.
Once I've learned something in the lecture, I'm able to come in the sim lab and actually practice what I've been learning. It's so inspiring that the professors come next to us and they tell us what to work on and what's wrong and what we can improve on. It was really cool and I wasn't expecting that.
NSU's College of Dental Medicine stands out for its supportive learning environment that empowers students to thrive both academically and clinically.
The diversity that we have in the school, it's very important because it gives us a lot of opportunities for everybody to learn from each other. It's not only the environment as a dental school, it's the environment of the friendship and sharing.
Such a warm and loving environment, especially within the students. We're all very connected.
As the academic dean, I'm able to guide the faculty members. We were able to bring everybody on board in order to improve the quality of the education that we're provided.
We call it one College of Dental Medicine, or one CDM. We have a world-class faculty, many talented minds, where everyone is focused on training the best dental professional we can.
We are producing excellent dentists, and certainly we're making a difference, not only to our students' education, our patient care, but our community.
At NSU CDM, we are inspiring minds, imagining new paths, and impacting the future of dental medicine. So I would like to say that we're one NSU because we do that all the time. And this video was produced by the students at University School. They have their own radio station, their own TV station. They do a news report every morning. They actually came over with their faculty member during finals week. We're all over the place filming. We were under a timeline, and a week later, this is the final product. So I don't think we could have gotten the most professional of professionals to do a video any better than these students did. So, you know, this is what excellence is all about, as Dr. Shania always liked to say, as our new mantra. And it's what excellence is all about as one NSU. So quite remarkable. All right, hope everybody enjoyed the video. And now we're going to turn to the reason why we're all here. It's going to be my honor to introduce a leader, Dr. V, who is redefining excellence in our profession. But before I share his impressive bio with you, I just want to take a moment to highlight why his voice matters so much right now, presently in our time. In a rapidly evolving profession, that dental medicine is for sure, Dr. Villanueva has remained a champion of the independent practitioner, creating pathways for dentists to thrive while preserving autonomy and clinical excellence. His work is not only shaping the business of dentistry, but the future of how many of you will practice. Dr. Chris Steven Villanueva is founder and CEO of MB2 Dental, the nation's largest and fastest growing dental partnership organization, or as we'll call it, a DPO. Born in Cincinnati and raised in Caracas, Venezuela, Dr. Villanueva brings a global perspective to his leadership. He completed his undergraduate studies at the University of Florida and earned his Doctor of Dental Medicine degree here at Nova Southeastern University, one of our own and a graduate in the 2004 class. After relocating to Dallas, where his wife was completing her medical residency, Dr. Villanueva began practicing dentistry and quickly recognized a very fundamental challenge. Independent dentists were at a disadvantage competing against large corporate groups. In 2007, he founded MP2 Dental to address that gap building a model that preserves clinical autonomy while creating the scale, support, and infrastructure needed to compete and grow. Unlike traditional dental service organizations, MB2's DPO model allows dentists to retain ownership, maintain their identity, and lead their practices independently while benefiting from shared resources and strategic support. The model is built on a simple belief. True partnership works when doctors have both autonomy and accountability to one another. Under Dr. Villanueva's leadership, MB2 Dental has grown to more than 800 practices and adding more each month across 45 states, supporting 1,900 doctor partners and 12,500 team members who serve more than 4.5 million patients annually. The company has completed 3 recapitalization events, most recently partnering with Warburg Pincus in 2024 at a valuation exceeding $3.5 billion. He is known for a leadership style that is direct, transparent, and grounded in partnership. Dr. Villanueva sets a high standard for service while fostering a culture built on trust, shared ownership, and long-term alignment. Many of MB2's leaders have been with the organization for over a decade, reflecting the strength and consistency of that culture. Beyond the business, Dr. Villanueva is deeply committed to supporting the people behind it. Through the MB2 Family Foundation, the organization provides meaningful support to team members in times of need, reinforcing the belief that taking care of people is essential to long-term success. Dr. Villanueva continues to lead the growth of the business, working closely with doctor partners across the country while overseeing MB2's overall strategy and day-to-day operations. His focus is on helping partners build stronger, more successful practices by providing meaningful support and continually raising the standard across the profession of dental medicine. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Christopher Stephen Villanueva, or better known as Dr. V.
Yeah, that was a heck of an introduction. Appreciate it, guys. It's actually been a couple decades since I've been in this auditorium, bringing back all types of feelings. I remember actually the summer of 2002, I took my Part 2 boards in this auditorium. I only remember that because that was the summer the air conditioning stopped working. And I remember sitting in that back row and having the attendees run up and down these aisles, giving away cold water to try to keep us awake because it was so warm. They gave us the option to leave and take it in a few months because it was so distracting. The heat was so distracting, but we had also committed to prepare for this test. We're gonna grind it through. And I remember I had this genius idea of taking a nap during the boards, and I laid my head down to what I thought was a 10 to 15 minute power nap, but ended up to be like a 30-minute nap. And they woke me up, and I quickly finished my boards. And happy to report, I passed. So that was one of the most incredible feats in my dental school career. Like Dean said, I graduated in 2004. I was the 4th graduating class, which means for the first few years, I had to make sure the school was still accredited while I was seeing patients. We're happy to see that the school is thriving decades later and really providing some of the best dental education in the country and in the world. I mean, I travel a lot. I get to speak to a lot of students, see a lot of schools, meet a lot of instructors. I'm very proud of this school and what it has become. I hope you guys understand what a fortunate position you're in to be here at Nova getting your education. Like I said, in 2004, I graduated. I was not top of my class by any means. I was kind of the meaty middle. I remember a lot of investors asked me, well, did you get a lot of business training in dental school, or did you get your MBA? To which I always say, No, but I was the social chair of SciO, the dental fraternity at Nova. And in retrospect, that actually has helped me more in my job than in my career path than an MBA could ever do, right? I surround myself with phenomenal executives in finance, accounting, HR, marketing. But my core competency is the ability to connect with my peers, understanding what we went through, what you're currently going through, in order to bridge the gap between the business world and the clinical world responsibly. And I think that's an important part that sometimes goes unnoticed when we're in dental school. So, now that you guys are in dental school, you guys should really focus and appreciate the camaraderie that you guys have. That becomes more and more difficult when you graduate. Nova is also where I met my wife. Thank you. Let me see. Nova is also where I met my wife. She was actually in the medical program. I met her at the mission trip to Jamaica. I don't know if you guys still do that. We do? Okay. As medical students intermingling with dental students is kind of taboo, right? Mainly because our attendings were retired dentists who had fruitful financial careers and could afford to take the dental students to Margaritaville for dinner, whereas the medical students attendings had more modest means, and so they had to eat sardine sandwiches at the local hotel. And so for medical and dental students to kind of talk was a little bit of a Romeo and Juliet story. I'll save the details for a more private setting on how it actually developed. But one of the best gifts Nova ever gave me was meeting my wonderful wife. I also was reminiscing about other fond memories here at Nova. One that strikes out to me was I was at the beach in Las Olas with my classmates, and it was fourth year, right before we graduated. And my classmate asked me, "When would you know you've succeeded in your career? Like, how would you measure that? How much money would you be making? Like, fast forward how many years? How would you know that this was all worth it?" And I remember not wanting to be too greedy, but also wanting to be ambitious. And I told him, if I had my own private practice in which I was taking home $300,000 to $400,000 a year, I think I could say it was a successful career. With inflation, that's a lot more for you guys. But this was 20 plus years ago. It sounds like a lot of money. I only share this because it wasn't my aspiration to be running an organization of this size. It wasn't my goal coming out of school to have this many offices or have this many partners or to be one of the largest groups in the U.S. It was kind of embracing opportunity that has presented itself. It was kind of putting one foot ahead of the other, while maintaining my independence and autonomy and my vision without compromising what I was taught here in dental school. I will tell you that after graduating, when the celebrations, the parties subsided, I had to actually get to work, right? So I signed a contract with a corporate group out in Texas. I remember it was a muggy June evening, and I packed every one of my belongings in my jalopy. You guys know what a jalopy is? Like a beat up car. I sometimes remember you guys are a lot younger than me. I'm kind of being pulled back to my dental school days. But I drove those 20 hours out to Dallas. I remember my father gave me $1,000 and said, "Best of luck to you." He got me through dental school, so the rest is up to you. And I worked at a corporate group. I worked for a corporate group for about a year. I then shifted to working in a private practice setting for a little over a year. And I quickly realized that there are challenges and benefits to both models, right? Which I'll go over here with you today. It crystallized in my mind that maybe if we had created a model that took what I liked about each one of those models and left behind what I didn't, maybe we could start something significant for our profession. And unfortunately, that was in 2007. For those of you who weren't around then, that was a great recession, credit crunch. No one was lending money. I then went to my family members and asked them for money. They didn't give me any money, and quickly realized the only people that understood my thesis were my fellow dentists and my friends. We all then decided to collaborate in creating a model that was very distinct and unique that could be meaningful in our profession. That was in 2007 when I started my first private practice. This was my initial Venn diagram I created. I thought it was so smart. When I went to the lenders, I used something from school to impress them. But as you can see, it was a very simple theory of, taking what I liked about the private practice model, the clinical autonomy, the local ownership, and the service diversity. Service diversity meaning, a lot of corporate groups, you kind of know the type of procedures you're going to be doing. Whereas what I loved about private practice is that private practice is beautifully unique, right? A private practice is the outward manifestation of your values, of your personality, what procedures that you like to perform in your treatment plan philosophy. And I embrace that. I really love that. And obviously, the ownership piece is quintessential. The knowing that your name is on the door, making sure that you're servicing your communities. Those are things that we held dearly. However, there was challenges being kind of a lone ranger out there, not having much leverage against insurance companies, distributors, manufacturers, and it could be pretty isolating. And so what I saw in a traditional DSO model that I did like was their ability to invest in enhanced systems and personnel. I mean, the individuals that work at MB2 and other large groups are very skilled and sophisticated, and not accessible to a private practitioner. I know there's consultants out there that can help, but they're not at the same caliber of some of the individuals that are able to be attracted by large groups. Another big one is that everyone talks about is reimbursement rate optimization. I mean, I don't know if your generation spends a lot of time on Facebook groups. My generation does. I mean, we used to do Dental Town when we kind of migrate to Facebook groups, and one of the biggest challenges is always insurance companies and reimbursement rates and trying to understand how we can get fair reimbursements. And as much as regardless of how you feel with the ADA and all they try, that's one thing they can't touch is ability to influence reimbursement rates to the private practitioner. And so our ability to leverage our size, scale, and sophistication to optimize those reimbursement rates so that you are working more efficiently and being rewarded for your work is a big part of why we decided to start down this road. I mean, plainly put, how are we as individual private practitioners going to be able to compete against large groups that get paid a lot more to do the same procedure, but also pay a lot less from everything from cotton rolls to healthcare, right? So the system is really rigged against us as a private practitioner. And so if we created a model that could bridge that gap, perhaps we had a fighting chance to be relevant and to be more efficient and spend more time with our families, right? On a side note on this insurance piece, which is very popular, you have to understand that insurance companies do use utilization data. So they look at all of us and they say, okay, what's their crown to filling ratio? What's their implant to filling ratio? And they kind of mark where each practitioner is. And what they see is whenever a private practitioner moves on to a corporate group, the procedure mix changes, right? Normally to larger cases, some people say more aggressive cases. And that's why insurance carriers are not fond of corporate groups. And at MB2, what they found was when private practices transfer from a private practice setting to affiliating with us, their treatment planning does not change at all. And not only that, now the insurance carrier has to speak to one individual about reimbursement rates, not 800 office managers, 900 office managers. So there's efficiencies to be had whenever you are under the same umbrella, and we are rewarded for that. That's why we are reimbursed higher than a private practitioner, because there's efficiencies in administrating healthcare, which is a key concern as we move forward. A couple more core tenets that we had, obviously we talked about the autonomy, once again, that goes beyond just clinical. I mean, hours of operation, staffing metrics, what you pay your staff, these are all I believe, reserved for the owner of the private practice. The support is important. I mean, it's not a consulting group. I have a campus very similar to Nova with 600 plus employees in Carrollton, Texas, that do nothing but support our practices as we grow. It was a novel idea back then to think about a dental group having executive individuals helping with our practices. But believe it or not, there are individuals out there, as good as you are going to be as dentists, there are guys out there that are that good at marketing. They're that good at finance, that good at accounting. And so to be able to attract that level of talent to support our practices is a significant competitive advantage versus being a private practitioner relying on dental town and consulting groups, right? One statistic I'm really proud of is the ownership pathway for our associates. So, I think the dream that we were sold in dental school was that you become an associate for our private practice. You kind of grind it out, and one day they will transfer ownership to you and they'll mentor you, and you will become the heir apparent of that practice and that community, which is a great path. However, it doesn't always come true, right? And very often it's not the right time. And so their timeline may be different than your timeline for ownership. And so what we have found is the vast majority of the associates that want to become owners have very clear paths to ownership, to whether expand with our organization or expand with their owner doctor in their respective markets. And so a lot of growth happens internally, just like it would in private practice, right? I think what goes unnoticed oftentimes is earning potential. I mean, I think there's this misconception that sometimes going with large groups comes with concessions around your earning potential. When we went down this road, it was very clear to us that our guiding star was we wanted to create a platform that was no compromise, right? You can make more for your families. We can earn more for our families. We can be more efficient in servicing our communities. We can do less administrative work so that we can spend more time with our families and our loved ones. I mean, it truly is a zero compromise model. You don't have to compromise the type of work you do, how you do it, the materials you use, the supplies you use, the staffing that supports you. All of that maintains locally. And so to be able to create a model where, with or without the economics, it was just a better way to practice was always our goal. Now, unbeknownst to us, it's a very investable model, but that was not what drove us to build this model. Actually, for the first 10 years, from 2007 to 2017, I was student body president. I was not paid a salary to be the CEO. It was kind of just a title that was appointed to me. I simply was told, hey, you're really good at talking with all the dentists. Let's aggregate our back support to try to create efficiencies in our practices. So I had to earn my keep as we grew. And I'm very proud of those first 10 years, or my formidable years. We got up to 100 locations, 100% doctor owned. All we did was we borrowed cash for equipment and supplies, and then we paid for the build out from our free cash flow, right? So no lenders, no other than equipment, no true investors outside of dentists. And we thought we were killing it. We got to 100 locations. We didn't answer to anyone but ourselves. We were making more than what I aspired at Las Olas Beach. So I thought I had it all figured out. Unbeknownst to me, there was an opportunity to talk to private equity. And I know there's a lot of disparaging comments about private equity, and we'll get into that. But understanding the value of being given the opportunity to partner with more practices at great valuations became very attractive. And I remember I was 39 years old at the time, and looking at my peers in their 40s, and a lot of them started having back issues and other issues, neck issues. And I was looking at my 4 young kids and thinking, man, I gotta diversify here a little bit. I do have to take some off the table. I do have to be responsible with the future of my business and the hundreds and thousands of employees that now look to us for leadership. And so that took us to 2000. 2017, where we partnered with our first private equity firm, Sentinel Capital out of New York. It was a very interesting endeavor. I'm a dentist through and through. I still view myself as a dentist through and through, and those investment meetings were very interesting. A very challenging investment. Kudos to them for seeing beyond it, but very green. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. We were just like, listen, we had a slogan. It was, dude, just be cool. Like everyone be cool. We're just going to figure this out as partners, and we're going to continue to grow and really handpick partnerships as we continue to scale. And so I remember being so viscerally concerned about their intervention of private equity, and I hear all the boogeyman stories about private equity coming in and telling us what to do, and then trying to cut costs and trying to increase your production. And I remember I was going back to Jamaica for a mission trip, and I invited one of the heads of the private equity to come with me. And he was an ex-military guy, so he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll go on I've never been on a medical mission, but I'll go with you, Dr. V." And I remember sitting in this abandoned church, and I was doing my surgery, and this guy rolls up, and he's a short guy, and he's wearing gloves 2 sizes too big. He didn't know he was I made him assist, and there was blood everywhere, and he was suctioning for me, and it was really nervous. And I lean over and I say, "Hey, Paul, half this population is HIV," and he rips his gloves off. He rips his gloves off, and he runs out of the church. He goes, "Dr. V, I'm never going to tell you guys what to do." I'm like, "Yeah, you shouldn't, because it's hard work. This is hard work. And at the end of the day, we as the clinicians, we're the ones going to make the decision, right?" Paul, he goes, "No, no, no, never going to tell you guys what to do. Sounds good." Right. And so it was important to me to instill in my investors that they don't call the shots, that we as the dentists call the shots, me at the corporate level, but my partners at the local level. Right. And that set of tone for future investments into the organization. We scaled rapidly with our first institutional sponsor, getting to 2021, which was obviously a difficult time for anyone during COVID. And COVID was a very interesting time in the dental space in particular, right? On one hand, you had the large corporate groups that had the wherewithal to stay in compliance, get PPE, get everything needed to continue to work, but their doctors were not owners. So they weren't really motivated to get back in service the community, right or wrong. That was a dynamic that a lot of these large corporate groups experienced. On the other side, you had the private practitioners who wanted to go back to work, who wanted to service their communities, who wanted to continue to be of service during that time. However, they didn't have the wherewithal to stay in compliance. I mean, there's so many rules, federal, local, state. They could not. And so you look at the ADA data, and it took them months to get back to pre-COVID numbers. You look at the ADSO data for the corporate side, and it took them months to get back. And then here's MB2 right in the middle, where the doctors wanted to go back. It was their name on the door. They wanted to service their communities. And we at HQ with the 600 employees were able to get them the PPE. We're able to monitor in real time the requirements to stay in compliance. And we got back to pre-COVID numbers and services in a matter of days. And so that really attracted a lot of attention from investors. And they said, if this organization can not only weather, but thrive during the most difficult time in the profession, it's really a resilient model. And that's when Charles Bank, which is Harvard's pension fund, approached me. And that was another interesting story, because, that was a little bit early in our investment with Sentinel. And for those of you who don't know, when a private equity company institution invests in you, it's normally a 7-year hold period, ideally, right? That's a good outcome for them to hold 5 to 7 years. And we were only a few years in with Sentinel, but Charles Bank was really impressed with the way we performed. They made our sponsor an offer to buy them out. I remember having those conversations, and Sentinel felt like it wasn't possible or plausible that another investor would want to give us full credit during a global pandemic. But unbeknownst to them, it was real. It was a real offer, and we were able to take on another partner, or replace our partner with a larger firm in 2021. They understood our model implicitly. They had a lot of connections within the organization. They understood how proud our providers and our partners are of the organization, and they were able to really invest heavily in our infrastructure and also give us the capital to continue to grow. And that was, we got to 375 practices, and they valued us right at $1 billion. Fast forward again for another few years, you look at 2024. That's when we got of size where Warburg Pincus, one of the largest private equity firms in the world, caught our attention, and they once again ran a process and decided to reinvest in our organization. Obviously, because of our model and because we're able to attract the best of the best practices in the U.S., they were able to confidently reinject capital into the organization. And so once again, I think what's so unique about our model is that we don't do, you guys may have seen marketing material, but the vast majority of our practices that join us are word of mouth. I mean, one metric I remember in dental school, them telling me is if you have a great private practice, 60 to 70% of your new patients are going to come from word of mouth, right? Same thing applies when you run a multi-billion-dollar dental company. 60 to 70% of all the offices that join us come from current partners of the organization. And so yes, we do marketing. Yes, we do a lot of outreach. We receive 3,000 applicants a year, 3,000 private practices that give us their financials and say, we like what you're doing. We want to support you. We partner with about 100 of them because not very many practices are of size and scale for them to have an investor and to take advantage of the systems that MB2 can provide. And so we provided other slew of services. We kicked off Carabelli Club, another funny name that I came up with. I thought it was clever. But that we support them in different ways, but the core business of MB2 still is very selective. And that's important, right? And this is an important lesson for you guys in your private practice. I remember there was a practice not too far from MB2, it was about 20-25 minutes away, that by all measures was a phenomenal practice. It was a private practice, all fee for service, 4.5 million in revenue, has been there for 20 plus years. And there's 3 doctors that were running it. And I had dinner with them. I came back the next day and I told my team, I'm like, I don't think we're going to place an offer on this practice. And they're like, Dr. V, you're crazy. I mean, it's a phenomenal practice by any measure, a successful private practice. Why in the world would you not want them to be part of the organization? And I was a little greener at the time. And I told them, when I was in private practice and I had a healthy private practice and I was booked out for a couple months and a patient was to present themselves and they had a very large treatment plan, a $20,000 treatment plan that I could render technically, but I knew that it was going to be a difficult relationship. I had the luxury as a private practitioner saying, I'm not the right dentist for you, right? There's another dentist out there that can service you better. And that's a luxury afforded to you if you have a healthy business, if you have a healthy practice, and you can be intellectually honest with yourself. The same philosophy applies in my business today. Because we are very selective and because we want to make sure we're not going backwards and fixing practices, we have the luxury of picking only the best that come to present themselves. I threw a slide up there from just last year. I had the privilege of sitting on stage with President Bush and interviewing him for my company. And it was a full circle moment for me because I remember, September 11th, 2001, I was here. I was in SimLab. I was a freshman. And, back then we just got cell phones. And so we started, people started calling and like something is going on in New York. And I remember running down from SimLab to this cafeteria over here and standing there looking at the TVs as the towers fell. And so a core memory of dental school was being huddled together with my classmates watching this attack and feeling this overwhelming sense of pride of being American, but also being protective of one another. And so once again, another memory from dental school that always sits with me. And for me, last October, to be able to sit down with the president, the guy that was on TV during my dental school career, and ask him, difficult questions was really a core memory for me for running this organization. And I remember, I mean, I don't get nervous very often, but that's probably one of the most nervous I've ever been in my career. I remember being backstage, walking on stage, and I looked over at him. I said, "Mr. President, there's a good chance I'm gonna black out here because I'm really nervous." And he looked at me and goes, "I got you, V." That's all he said. He goes, "I got you, V." And so he's such a professional. He put me at ease, and thankfully, this is a guy who had he had access to nuclear codes, and he's now sitting with a dentist at a company event. So that was a really cool event last year. 26 and beyond, I feel like we really have a clear path for growth. We added one of the largest private practices in the U.S. Into our group last year, beginning of this year, end of last year. The Smile Lodge over in Albany. I mean, it's a 20 doctor operation with 200 employees, 26 million in revenue. One of the like I said, most productive practices in America. Found a lot of value in our support and have since joined us and continues to grow. And so people ask me all the time, what does the future hold for the profession or MB2 in particular, right? I think it's a critical time. I think the balance between private practice and corporate groups is more relevant than ever. I think there's a lot of distress in the corporate group world. Regardless of how you feel about it, it's a hard business to be in. I think there's a misconception that somehow corporate groups are taking over private practice. It's not, right? It's like, if you really look at the sponsored backed, private equity backed dental groups, it only represents about 15% of all providers in the US. And so private practice isn't going away. Private practice will never go away. That is where dentists shine. I think there's an alternative there for corporate groups, for people that don't want to own, and that's great, but is by far not the only solution for graduating dentists. And I think a lot of us believe that working corporate is somehow like a necessity after dental school. It really isn't, guys. They just have more of a budget to get in front of you guys and have these conversations, but they are reflective of very small percent of the total population of providers in the U.S. And I think it's going to stay that way. Quite frankly, I think private practices need to do a better job of getting in front of us and get in front of you guys. I just met with the ADA last week, and they're very supportive of MB2 and the way we approach it. I would encourage you guys to really do your diligence when it comes to those opportunities and not just sign with the first lunch and learn that comes in here. They still do that? They still do lunch and learns? They still feed you guys pizza? Oh man, that's rough. At least I used to do mine at Falcon Pub. Is that still there? All right. So I still got that. I'm still reminiscing my life here. I do believe there's going to be future consolidation in the space. I think in the next couple of years, we'll see the first truly public dental company in America. There's one now, but it's a very small group. Full disclosure, that could be us. I think when you get to valuations of our size, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of concern around the public markets potentially changing what we've built. Arguably, public market would actually be a little bit easier. Instead of having, a handful of highly sophisticated investors looking at you every day, you have a more diverse group of investors protecting your interest. We operate very much like a public company now, even though we're private. We still have our board meetings. We still have our investment memos. I do this thing every quarter where after my board meeting, I share it with all my doctors. And they think I'm crazy. All the investors think I'm crazy. I'm like, Dr. V, how about if you guys aren't doing well a quarter? You want your doctors to know? I'm like, yeah, they want them to know, because at the end of the day, they're the only ones going to fix it, right? And so I have very candid conversations with my partners because we are the owners of our business. People don't know this. We're 75% of MB2 is still owned by myself, my executives, and my doctors. So this is our future. This is our business. Every doctor partner in there, they feel like it's theirs. And I think that's what's so different about our group versus other corporate groups. I don't know how many of you are fixing to graduate. I didn't know graduation was yesterday, so I probably wouldn't be here either. But I would say that on a very simple, simple basis, this is my estimation of your options outside dental school, after dental school, right? You can work as a private practice, which is promised to us. You can work as an associate in large practice group. Like you said, I've covered the pros and cons of each. Um, Honestly, I was told this when I was sitting in these seats, when I asked what they would do after dental school, and I didn't believe them, but one of my professors told me if I had the intestinal fortitude to just open my practice right outside of dental school, that I should. I didn't listen. I took about 2 3 years in practice before I got the intestinal fortitude to do that. But it truly is, looking back, it's easy for me to say, but I understand, many of you don't have the appetite for it either, is to build your own practice. I think, I feel like undergrad dental school, we've already made so many sacrifices, right? Like we've already made so many sacrifices. We've seen our friends, maybe not even go to undergrad, maybe, are starting their lives, maybe they're starting their families, and we're still sitting here in our scrubs doing class twos. I mean, we've already made so many sacrifices. I feel like if you can just make a little bit more and build your practice and take and go without for a little bit longer, it would pay itself in spades. I mean, I feel like when I graduated, there was two camps. There was people that felt that they already made the sacrifices and that now it's time for them to go out and get and work in a practice and have an assistant. And those of them that really said, no, I'm gonna grind it out for a little longer and I'm gonna build my practice. I'm gonna take the risk. Maybe I'll go without having two assistants. Maybe I'll help autoclave my stuff for a little longer so that I can have pride of ownership and the opportunity to own my practice. Those are the guys and gals that really did well. And so I remember when I first worked, I was just happy to have an assistant. Did they have assistants now on the floor? Like back in the day, we had no assistants. The dental students were helping the dental students back then, right? We were autoclaving our own stuff, and so just to have an assistant was like it was so it was such an eye-opening experience. I'm like, I could do this all day long. But if you can just hold on to that mentality that, you're still building your career right after dental school, I think it pays it for itself in spades. And obviously, those two options are available to you. I'm not going to sit here and self-promote MBT too much, but obviously we found a path that's a little bit different where you are working for a private practice, but there is a clear path to own that practice when you're ready, or to expand and own a practice and kind of de-risk the ownership piece whenever you're ready. And the conversations are just with myself and other executives, so it's pretty straightforward. Um, you know, I threw these up here as well. What tips would I give dental students graduating or thinking about graduating or soon? I can't reiterate enough the importance of mentorship, right? I mean, we take it for granted being in dental school. Like we're just used to people telling us stuff. The second you walk out these doors after you graduate, you're kind of on your own. You're doing things on the fly. You're looking over your shoulder to get things signed off, and you realize you're the one signing things off. Mentorship is so important, and that's what private practice provided us for generations. Right? It was understood that our elders were going to help us integrate into the dental community, and so don't compromise on that. I think that sometimes is overlooked, and unfortunately, that's what disproportionately you guys are seeing in these corporate groups, right? You enter these corporate groups and they've kind of created this factory mentality where you're all taking the same CEs, you guys are using the same materials, you guys are using the same supplies, and the mentorship piece is lacking. I think there's something really unique and quite frankly beautiful about mentoring younger generations. Obviously, we take it for granted because all these phenomenal professors do it because it's a passion of theirs. But I think that's more rare once you're out in the field. Needless to say, a lot of us feel like we do need to sacrifice on our vision or the technology that we use. Make that a priority because I'm sure it's been told to you guys, the way you practice the first couple of years out of school is probably the way you're going to practice for the rest of your career. So be very selective of where you actually practice. It's a lot harder to undo some of those habits decades in. I think surrounding yourself with advisors is also very important, right? I think once again, when I graduated, I was just happy to be out and about. I wish I'd spent a little more time curating good lawyers and accountants around me to give me sound advice. I also feel like there's always going to be a fraternity amongst dentists that is often unspoken, right? In groups, we could be kind of a pain in the butt. I mean, we see that in our Facebook groups in Deltown, but on an individual level, if you can connect with your peers, you can connect with people you respect, it's invaluable. And so make sure you're spending that time finding those individuals, because we've gone through something very unique in going through dental school and going through undergrad, that I think the best advice I've received is from fellow dentists who have gone through the same issues as I have. And finally, what I would tell you guys is, be open to opportunity, right? I think one of the traits inherent in dental students and in dentists is we have a very clear path of progression in our lives to this point in time, right? We kind of knew we graduate high school, we're going to get a certain GPA, get into undergrad, get a certain GPA, and hopefully get a dental school. And hopefully some of you will get a certain GPA and move on to specialize. What I would tell you is be open, because sometimes life doesn't work that cleanly the second you exit these doors. Like I said, I was just happy to have a private practice, and somehow the universe decided that I should be running an organization of this scale. I've seen people who thought they're going to be private practitioners and ended up in academia, or ended up in research. Really open your mind to these possibilities, and any preconceived notions you may have about those paths. Give it a shot, right? I would never have in a million years imagined I'd be running this organization and competing in a world where I have no business being in, right? And so I think that's a testament to the education I received here. It's a testament to the rigors of getting to this point. I always say that being a dentist, graduating dental school, running a private practice, it's a lot harder than doing what these private equity guys do. They try to complicate things, but really it's not. I mean, dentistry truly gives you guys the right rigor and infrastructure that you need to really expand your vision and opportunity to other fields. So with that said, really appreciate the time here today. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of insight on what it means to run an organization at scale. Happy to answer any questions you may have. I don't do many of these in my 20 plus years. I think I've done 3. I'm not a big public speaker or lecture circuit guy, but hopefully from my alma mater, happy to share information and my kind of history with you guys. So thank you.
Well, we have a unique program for the D3 students. They can start in their D3 year and do an MBA. They get their MBA when they graduate in their 4th year. A little bit of a sacrifice. You had mentioned that not really needed. What do you think the value of having that MBA would be for our students?
Yeah, I mean, if your aspiration is to really be on the business side of the profession, I would say go for it. I mean, it would accelerate. I mean, I struggled with that for a while, whether or not I should get an executive MBA. In retrospect, have I gotten it? I'd probably have accelerated my knowledge base considerably. Fortunately, unfortunately, I did a lot of on-the-job training and surrounded myself with people. And I still, to this day, certain financial acronyms, I'll like lean over to my CFO. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? What is he saying? And probably not the standard CEO that would do that. But if you have a passion for business and you're very entrepreneurial, there is no downfall to getting your MBA, especially while you're in school. Oh yeah, absolutely. What I didn't throw up there is 25% of our practices are specialists, primarily orthodontist, endodontist. We got a couple oral surgery, but I think there are more private equity backed groups looking at specialty versus GP. We're the only group of scale that has both in our network. Obviously, one of the strategies is, GPs join, they tell us the referral network, and they want to be able to join for those synergies. And so a lot of times we'll enter new markets with specialty and general practitioners combined. But yeah, same leverage with the insurance carriers and with suppliers.
Alex Mendine, Chair of the Department of Prosthodontics here. Amazing lecture. Thank you so much. Not lecture, but more your experience. It's so inspiring to see, and for our students present here. We have invested, and Dean Coleman had invested endless amount of energy, money into creating a group practice model that is supportive of private practice, and that's what our students want. I had also invested with Dean Coleman in technology utilization, digital dentistry, for prevention, but also the treatment of patients. How do you see in your model for MB2 this new generation with technologies, laboratory, 3D printing, and many other things that the corporate and also technology have brought to dentistry in the practice of dentistry?
No, great question. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, what's unique about my model and our model is that we don't have a chief clinical officer because every practice is their own chief clinical officer. And so what a lot of times we find is we have a very active intranet with all the doctors, and they share their knowledge base, but also spearhead technological initiatives and clinical initiatives that then invite other providers into the space. And then some of those initiatives actually become the backbone of our organization. I mean, we've had a lot of those technological initiatives just be embraced. We have strategic partnerships with a lot of them. We spend a lot of time socially together, as you can see by these pictures. I intentionally don't do any CEs in our retreat. I'll share one funny story with you guys about while you're looking at these weird pictures up here. I remember as before 2007, we got to the 100 locations, and Henry Schein said, "Hey, you guys are big enough now. We're going to give you corporate sponsorship. So give you guys back a check so you can do something with your doctors." And we got this. It was like $17,000, and we looked at it and we're like, "This is awesome. This is like free money. What do we do with this? Do we, distribute it to the owners? Do we keep it for a rainy day, or do I go back to my dental school days and we throw a sick party?" And so we end up throwing our first owners retreat in like 2005. We went to like Buffalo Thunder in New Mexico. It was like a Class C casino, but we thought we had made it as a bunch of dentists. And so to this day, every year we go to our owners retreat with no CEs, but the doctors do congregate and discuss their personal initiatives clinically and otherwise. We have our next one coming up in October. We actually rented out the entire USS Midway in San Diego, all paid for by vendors, all paid for by sponsors. And so to go from a private practice where those guys are beating us up to a point where they're actually paying for us to have a great time is a very gratifying experience. Sure.
I know earlier you said that a big part of your organization is no compromise for the private practice, but obviously some sort of exchange has to occur to receive benefits. So in order for a practice to be part of MB2, what are they trading to gain your benefit?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think what you're alluding to is buying into a practice obviously is a transfer of cash in return for cash flow, right? And so that's what you're referencing. What's often not spoken about is because of our partnership, their margin profile expands, right? Because we can expand their margin profile, we talk a lot about income repair. And so whatever they were making before the partnership, our goal is to continue to make that with our efficiencies, plus having paid for a portion of their business, right? Plus being invested into a parent company that, has performed astronomically in terms of financial performance and will, God willing, in the public markets. So I think that's the trade-off you're referencing. Other questions? Yes. One of my teachers over here.
Oh, you bet. You should have seen his class twos when I was helping him on beveling his axial pulpal line angles.
There's a reason I don't treat patients anymore. It's probably better.
I think you've done pretty well. I'm a capitalist in an academic prison, and I really enjoy what you've done, how you expanded out your into a field that's definitely needed in the profession of dentistry today. I'm in charge now of continuing dental education here at the school. And in regards to your corporate structure, what benefits are there for us to be members of your organization in terms of more efficiently and economically better ways for continuing dental education.
Got it. And so, yeah, this is where, once again, my philosophy is different than other large groups. Other large groups have curriculum where they in-house a lot of the CE, and you're going to go through the same sequence of curricula. I'm a firm believer that there's already a lot of phenomenal classes out there. I mean, I've been to many of them. And so what we do is we rely on our partners to curate the best of the best, and then we leverage our size and scale to then receive them many times for free. And so a lot of times, we have an auditorium in our campus. I call it auditorium, but it's really 2 pickleball courts I've built. So we play a lot of pickleball, and so we host a lot of events there for doctors. It gives them a reason to travel to visit HQ in Dallas. You guys are always welcome to consider this an invitation to come to HQ and kind of see what a central service looks like for a large dental organization. I think you'd actually find that very interesting for those of you who are business inclined. But I think in the end of the day, we always allow dentists to select the CE. We leverage our size and scale to get it sponsored, and oftentimes we don't pay for anything. And so I think that's what's unique. Yeah.
Sorry, could you explain a little more about the path to ownership? Like, is it full ownership or is it just like 51% majority owner?
Yeah. So how our model works is a joint venture model, right? So whenever we partner, we don't own any practice 100%. There's always a piece of ownership that is at the local level, right? And so that can vary from 15% to 49%, but it's always going to be a minority share so that the majority can protect its interests. And the majority, once again, is not evil investors. It's all of us. It's all the dentists in our group, right? And so there are protections in place for our group. If no different than if I didn't do my job as a CEO, they should probably do something about it and have the ability to replace me. The same philosophy applies to our offices. Like, yeah, people own them, but if there's bad boy provisions in there that they can allow them to replace ownership, we as an organization and as doctors should have the ability to do that, right? So I think there's this misconception that if you don't own 100% of your practice, that you're not a true owner. That's a very misguided. I mean, it's a very black and white comment, but it's more nuanced than that. I mean, I travel this country and there's so many phenomenal practices that have multiple dentists that own them, right? So does that make them any less accountable because they own 33% of their business? Like, no. I mean, they're accountable to each other, and the dentists own the asset. And so owning 33% of a $27 million revenue business is significant versus owning 100% of a $2 million business, right? And so I think we have to do a better job at understanding the nuance in ownership. It's not as black and white as like you got to own 100%, or you can't have private equity, or you have to be in certain markets. Like, no, like I think you need to look at the end of the day how governance works in the organization, and who's making those decisions at the corporate level and the office level. And so for us, those transitions are very much like private practice, right? So in private practice, let's say there's 2 owners and they own it 50-50 and one's retiring. It's incumbent upon the retiring dentist to find their successor, mentor that successor, and continue to serve those patients, right? And so it's the exact same thing within our organization. We do not place dentists. That's something that's very clear. We can triage them. So if you guys ever talk to an MB2 booth or something, we're just triaging dentists. Like, tell us what you want, and we'll play matchmaker and try to get you in front of the right private practitioner for you guys to then work with, and then hopefully evolve into ownership, right? But that's one of my rules is like we do not hire dentists. We collect their information and we provide it to the local dentist. The local dentist decides who's going to be servicing their communities, who lines up with their values, et cetera. But hopefully that answers your question on that transition. But very much like private practice, our doctor turnover rate is just like private practice. So if you look at the retiring doctors or those who are moving, it's no different than private practice. Whereas corporate groups, there's a much higher turnover, which is part of the reason why there's so much trouble in the DSO space right now.
So that brings me to my next question. You showed a slide, you could be in private practice, be a DSO, but in the middle you had be a associate in a MBB dental So, we get all these lunch and learns with the pizza,
Oh, it's
but
awful.
I think
They can afford more than pizza.
maybe advertising this a little bit more, because to me, a graduating dental student today is very nervous about opening their own practice. Although there is nothing better when you sacrifice at the beginning. Unfortunately, in my era, it took 3, 4, 5 years. You were fine. Unfortunately, today it may take a little longer, but you're still fine. Uh, Rather than line up outside, I'm not picky on any DSO, but lining outside the booth at Heartland on ASDA Day or Aspen, uh, trying to find, let's say, you're from all over the states. Let's say you want to go back home to uh, the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. Well, maybe there's a great practice within MP2 Dental looking for an associate. Now it's just like private practice. You're entering as an associate with the ability to become a partner and be part of the network. So that's really unique. I don't think most of our students, not only our students, but I think dental students across the country, really know that option exists. That's a great option, I think.
Yeah, and so I'll reference my own experience. I mean, when I graduated in 2004, everyone thought I was crazy going to Texas, right? I had my Florida boards. I passed my Florida boards, which were very hard. Are they still hard? They're very hard. And so not for these guys, but I passed my boards, and they thought I was crazy going out to the desert. But there's a lot of opportunity in Texas. I mean, there was a lot of opportunity. Texas is very commercial in the sense that people were just getting out of professional office buildings into more commercial retail centers. And so I made a sacrifice to move from beautiful sunny Florida, which was all I knew, to go to the desert, and it paid off in spades. And what I'm telling you guys is, I mean, I know you guys are revving to go, and you guys are ready to do it, and you earned the right to work where you want to work. I understand that mentality, but if you guys just take a step back and quote unquote sacrifice to be where opportunity is, I guarantee you won't regret it. Because I've had great doctors. Actually, there's a couple of students at Nova that approached me, and they really wanted to be in Denver. And I said, okay, we don't have a practice that suits you in Denver, but let us work together, and you can be an associate in New Mexico. And so they were associates for a doctor in New Mexico, with the understanding that after a couple of years, we will build them practices in Denver. And sure enough, they did well. They learned, they made a lot of money because there's a lot of need in New Mexico. And then they moved on and created their private practices in Denver with us. And I think that was a phenomenal experience. And so once again, there are so many paths that aren't spoken about, and you can get creative. I mean, you guys now have the license to be creative. I mean, I know in school, it's kind of like written what you're going to do. The second you walk out the door, it's free game. Like, decide your path. Try to find areas where you can service communities. There's beauty in every community in America. I go to every single state. I look at practices in every single state, and I tell you, any of you with the right opportunity should be open to practicing in all these underserved states, at least for a portion of time. I mean, now, people fly everywhere all the time anyway. And then when you guys are ready and you feel confident, with or without my backing, you can now get a private practice and buy into another state, whether it's from the ground up or there's a retiring dentist, but we now have a relationship, and we can kind of evolve into that position, which I think, once again, we need to do a better job of explaining that. But don't think that just being a doc in the box next to a Starbucks is what you're going to be relegated to for the first couple of years. Okay. Yeah.
My name is Howard Dodick. I'm a D3, and as Dr. Colton was mentioning, I'm one of the students that's concurrently working towards an MBA. My dream is to open a dental practice as soon as possible after graduation. So what advice would you have for someone like me to best position myself and my future practice to partner with MB2 in the future?
Yeah, listen, I think, first of all, kudos. I mean, that's, that's more confidence than I ever had coming out. So that's a lot of foresight in being able to open it. You're going to do just fine. However, like I said, make sure you surround yourself with good advisors. And when I say that, not the Henry Schein rep. Those dudes just want to sell us equipment, right? Don't I mean, anyone from Shine here, you're great strategic partners, but they should not be your business advisors. You need to find great advisors. Once again, all I know is my world. You're welcome to ping us, and whether you join us or not, happy to help you. I think my loyalties are to the profession and to clinicians. And so it doesn't really matter to me if you're within MB2 or not. I mean, happy to help. But I think it's very difficult for you just to, Google search or chat GPT nowadays, like who could be helping you. It's fraught with grifters and fraught with bad advice. And so make sure, if anything else, you talk to another dentist who's done it successfully and ask for who their advisors were. Right. And I would say I'm in that category of dentists you should talk to. What other questions? Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of hop off of what you just said in the last question. So finding advisors as a student, and like I come from I'm first gen, I don't have any dentists in my close circle apart from those at Nova and our wonderful faculty. So what advice do you have to kind of branch out, and what am I looking for when I'm looking for that advisor that's not just a sales rep trying to sell me something? Because someone that doesn't know, that may sound like a wonderful advisor, support, without what am I looking for? Red flags, green flags, any advice you have there?
Yeah, a couple things. Once again, I'm gonna upset some people when I say this, but any advisor that limits their practice to dentists only, I'd be very skeptical about. When they say, well, I'm a CPA that only does dentists, or I'm a lawyer that only does dentists. When I hear that, that tells me you're only qualified to speak to individuals who have a surplus of income potential that doesn't match their financial sophistication. So it's kind of an easy consulting gig, right? So I would start by saying, find great lawyers, great accountants, not just in dental, but in business in general, right? Actually, we actually have a list of all those advisors that we recommend. So a lot of times when we are talking to another dentist that could potentially join us, like I said, 70% of those doctors don't have brokers, don't have real estate agents selling them, who normally are their advisors. And so they say, well, why would I don't know what I don't know. We actually give them a list of hey, they're independents. It's kind of, I learned it from referrals, right? When I refer to an orthodontist, I give them 3 orthodontists. I'm like, hey, you decide who you're gonna pick. They're all great. I do the same thing for accountants and CPAs and lawyers. I'm like, hey, these are the guys I know are honest. I feel is honest. No dog in the fight. You can talk to them, right? So I think, once again, everything I do, I learned in dental school. So I could probably steer you guys in the right direction.
Hey, one last question. Does Clearwater have any questions?
Does Clearwater have any questions? I think they went to sleep.
One last question. You had alluded to the fact that you get 3,000 applications a year, only 100 make it. So if I'm one of those practices that didn't make it, can I rely on any part of your just help me get to that level?
Yeah, great question. So the question was, of those that don't actually join us, the thousands that don't join us, what resources are available to them? And so I saw the exact same thing for the last few years. And so I created Carabelli Club, which is not just a buying group where you get things for less. Yes, you get supplies so supplies and lab for less, but more importantly, you now have the sample size relevant to run your business. And so what we do when you're a member of Carabelli, think of it like, the G League and basketball, where, we can give you the data and say, hey, this is what we see in your practice. This is the areas of improvement. You're not of scale for us to invest today, but we're happy to help you. And these are the areas where you should focus on, right? And I think that was been our solution. It's actually, we've only had it for a handful of months. We have 300, 400 members on it. We actually, 2 have actually, quote unquote, graduated or signed with us to join MB2 proper already in the last few months. It also functions a lot like, stepping stone for them if they're not sure they're ready for partnership. I'm not sure about selling you 50, 60% of my practice. I want to get to know you guys first. Well, that's another way. And thankfully, a lot of them have found that as a potential path to joining us. But
Can you also, you talk about Carabelli, please.
yeah.
Talk about MP2 Dental.
Oh man, I get this a lot. MB2 dental. I mean, it's because you guys etched it in my brain so much in dental school. You know, a lot of finance guys ask, "What does that mean? What does that mean?" I'm like, we were at a restaurant one night just hanging out, and we're like, we got to name our support services something, and it was not patient facing. And so a bunch of knucklehead dentists were like throwing off names, and I threw out like, let's call it Talon Custom Dental, or let's call it Carabelli Dental, or let's call it MB2 Dental, just because it's kind of a tip to the hat to our boards. And we landed on MB2, and so nothing more sophisticated than MB2.
Stands for
Mesial buckle 2. Yep, that's our level of maturity, and it's and the original logo. This is a marketing logo. Original logo is like red and yellow because I'm a big Iron Man fan. So I'm like, let's make it red and yellow. So that's the extent of sophistication that got us to a multi-billion-dollar company. so it's not that complicated, guys. Don't worry about it.
Righty. Well, I think questions were great. Thank you so much for a great
Thank you.
presentation. So this is being presented to Chris Villanueva, class of 2004, in recognition of your visionary leadership, pioneering spirit, and unwavering commitment to advancing the profession of dentistry. As founder and CEO of MB2 Dental, you've championed the strength and independence of private practice, inspiring generations of dentists to lead with purpose and integrity. Your enduring dedication to Nova Southeastern University College of Dental Medicine as chair of the Dean's Circle of Impact, distinguished alumnus, and advocate reflects the highest ideals of our profession. With appreciation for your enduring contributions to the profession and to your alma mater.
Thank you.